Exploring the bizarre. Your e-ticket ride into the world of the paranormal. Strap yourself in as we traverse the universe exploring the unexplained. UFOs, ghosts, lost worlds, cryptozoology, as well as other dimensions. It's time to take back the night. Now, your electrifying hosts of Exploring the Bizarre, Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz.
Wow, I'm up here on this hill looking up into the sky, and I've got such a pulsating headache. There's some noise coming down from that UFO, and it's really draining. It's zapping me, Tim. This reminds me of the time I had my close encounter in Warminster, England. Oh, the pressure is so heavy, but I'm sure it will be alleviated by talking with our guest tonight. And Tim, happy holiday.
Why, thank you very much, Tim. Happy holidays to you as well, and I'm glad to see that you survived your visit from Krampus.
Oh, indeed, but I did get a couple of lumps of cold, but I'm sending him over to the White House.
Yeah, well, coal is the future, you know. They say.
It is indeed. It is indeed.
Well, it's always
free energy. All you got to do is dig it up out of the ground.
That's right. Free dirty energy.
Indeed. Hey, so what have you been up to, Tim?
Well, I'm sitting here right now in by the studio here in beautiful Jasper, Indiana. And if you're listening to us live, you know that tonight is the longest night of the year. So happy winter solstice too.
Mm-hmm. We could just go out now. This is the time to go and look for UFOs. Then we can stay out a couple of hours longer. Probably daybreak doesn't happen to about 7 a.m. or even after that, maybe.
I'm not quite sure. Now, this morning when I was out, it was just clear as a bell. I mean, you could see every star in the sky. It was just so beautiful. I mean, when the meteor shower was supposed to happen a couple of weeks ago, it was just so cloudy here, and we couldn't see a thing. But this morning, it made up for that. So I mean, I saw a few shooting stars. Nothing quite like the meteor shower.
Well, I'm here in the middle of Manhattan, and the only star I ever see is when I look into the mirror, because we have nothing but huge buildings all around us. In fact, on the block where our headquarters are located, there is a 70-story hotel going up. They have been working on the foundation for almost a year. I don't even think they put up one floor yet. And then on the corner of 5th Ave, we have a 57-story apartment complex. That seems to get higher and higher every day. I know I get dizzy as I walk by and crane my neck looking at the crane and all this other elevators that they have. It's just it's something else. But I'm kind of disappointed because the city has lost its charm. Everything looks the same.
That's the problem.
There's no diversification anymore. Yeah, we have the Flatiron Building, we have the Empire State Building, we have the Chrysler Building, and each of them were done by a different architect, and they are they are marvels of architecture for the times that they were built. Today it's like whoever is constructing a building goes and buys either number 1 blueprint, number 2 blueprint, and I don't even think you need an architecture for this. Just go straight up and put in a lot of glass.
That's right.
What do you
Lego buildings.
I guess that's the future, along with coal. Can you imagine the enormous amount of coal it would take to heat a 70-story hotel?
Ugh. Oh, no.
That's why they're putting that huge basement that they've been working on for a year.
For what? Like giant coal furnaces? That'd be a nightmare.
It must be. Anyway, enough of talk about coal. We want to talk about free energy. And actually, free energy, in a sense, made the news this week, Tim, with this Pentagon disclosure unofficial Pentagon disclosure, I guess you could call it.
Right.
Semi-official Pentagon disclosure, because apparently one of the reasons that the Pentagon was keeping tabs on UFOs, even though they claim they gave up investigating them in 1969, was because they want to find out how these things operate and how they fly. It's such tremendous speed and maneuverability.
Well, the official report that came out with this was saying that they gave it all up after just a couple of years because they had like just stacks and stacks of paperwork from these sightings, but nothing ever came from it. Which
yes, well they
I
spent
just can't believe
$22 million. Now, Tim, if they had slipped us $2 million, we could have come up with the exact same conclusions in about an hour.
Well, they had their own, pilots and military personnel having these experiences and giving detailed reports. Yet, I saw a story yesterday where some astronomer was saying that, oh yeah, well, these pilots were probably mistaken in what they saw. Nothing rankles me more. I was going to say another word, but we want to try to keep this word, this show.
We're broadcasting
clean.
Out of Las Vegas, so we can.
Okay, well, nothing frosts my ass more than then you have these skeptics who they weren't there. You've got these highly trained military pilots who know what the hell that they are looking at, and they have all kinds of flight hours, and they know the difference between the planet Venus and something that's hovering over the surface of the ocean, as big as a football field, and what have you. And then you have these astronomers like, oh well, these pilots, they didn't know, they were mistaken. They were seeing an optical illusion, or a dolphin that was sick or something like that. It's just ridiculous. Okay, there.
Well, it is. In fact, I see that my old nemesis, James Oberg, who either used to work for NASA or maybe still consults for them, I'm not quite sure, has come out with some negative statements, of course, on the sighting. He once called me a liar on the air. He needs a good smack along the side of the face. I had spent 3 days investigating all the reports that astronauts had made. This was in the early 1970s. I spent 3 days at NASA headquarters in Washington, D.C. They let me into their files. They even gave me a sheet that said photographs of UFOs that were taken by the astronauts, and they made copies of the pictures. And he said, oh, this didn't happen. Like he's spent the damn 3 days there. Nothing. He just, these skeptics talk at this, there's nothing wrong with being skeptical. I mean, heck,
no,
there's a lot of things that take place that we're skeptical of, but at least we're knowledgeable and we don't go in with a preconceived notion about any of this. The facts are the facts, and we're going to find out tonight what the facts are from two fascinating guests that I can't wait to speak with. So, Tim, why don't you introduce who we're going to be having on this evening?
Oh, my pleasure. Well, we have Russ Kellett and Flori Violetta. I hope I said that both those names correctly. Now, Russ has been a UFO investigator for the past 20 years, and according to our producer, he has made several appearances here on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now, Russ has appeared in a number of television documentaries and talk show, and he's worked closely with local and national radio, television, and newspapers, trying to get accurate information out there concerning the UFO mystery. Now, Russ has set up the British UFO Hunters, a group of UFO investigators and researchers that conducts unbiased scientific research into UFO sightings, abductions, and related phenomena. So with us tonight is Flori Violetta, And Flori is a mother of four from Virginia with a background in the telecommunications industry. She has witnessed a number of strange things while growing up, but her life changed one night in early 2016 when she had her first UFO encounters. Now, Flori grew up on a 120-acre property that her family owned since the 1800s, and during this time, there was no shortage of weird activities, and I guess that has continued as she throughout her adult life.
I did have the opportunity to speak with her on the phone just about a week ago, and she's had some remarkable experiences there in Virginia, and apparently it's an ongoing epidemic of UFOs near her property.
Well, I can't wait to hear about them.
Yeah, indeed. So I think let us start out with our friend Russ over there in the UK. Russ, exactly where are you located?
Filey in North Yorkshire on the east coast, overlooking the North Sea.
How close are you to the ocean itself?
Well, if I spit it, it'd probably go in the sea.
That's a beautiful area, by the way, Russ.
If you've actually seen my videos on YouTube of the flying triangle coming out of Filey Bay, I was just at the top of the road there, about 200 yards away from the two flying triangles that came out when they were filming, and I lived just on that sort of like road. The main road there at the top.
So you have a UFO group?
Well, to be quite honest, there's only a couple of us left. After 10 years or so, people have got lives to lead and live, and sometimes families and whatever get in the way of things. Me. I don't really have a family as such. I just, used to live with my mum and my sister. And sort of like, I became a UFO investigator through my abductions, you see. And wanted to find out what was going on. And boy, did I find out what was going on. The difference is that I film things that have shot down. I've been zapped while I've been filming. I filmed flying triangles coming out of the sea, flying saucers, one of the first flying men in 1980 in England, daytime, which is all there on R.J. Kellett on YouTube, Russ Kellett UFO Hunter. And I think I put 20 videos, most of mine, but all copyright, my copyright, and a few of my friends, like dogfights over here in the sky. We've got ball-like craft being attacked by black flying triangles. And the thing is, when I had the documentary makers over here watching this, 3 documentaries pulled me out of the documentaries. I was edited out of UFOs with Danny Dyer, I think it was. I had ABC, they came over, they lost the videotape about 4 years ago at Christmas. They did a special feature on the UFOs, and I got a call the next day. Sorry, we've lost the videotape. Now, in my line of business, if I'd have lost something as valuable as that, because, these guys are on a lot of money an hour, to spend a day filming and then to sort of like have nothing at the end of it. Wow, I don't know. My boss wouldn't have been. I'd have been down the road. I would have been down the road.
Now you've been involved. One of the clippings that you sent me says that you were involved in the Welsh Roswell. Is that a UFO crash?
Really? You've never heard of it?
I might have. Of course, there've been, I've been reading the Flying Saucer Review for so many years and getting all this literature. Why don't you tell us a little about the incident?
Right. Well, I was given a file of what happened on this night by a group of 5 men. They'd been at a do, like a men's club that was on the way home, and they came across a landed craft at the side of the road. They got out.
Well, what year would this have been?
This was what, 1973. Yeah, what were it? 23rd, 1974.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened was that the chaps were sort of like looking at this craft, and there was 4 aliens that got out of this saucer-like object, and shortly after, and I mean shortly after as well. What we had was the military turned up, and there was basically ushered away. There was told, basically, leave this area now. Now, 4 of the 5 men was in the car. Had actually.
And you interviewed these gentlemen?
I interviewed. Let's say I interviewed 2 of the 5, and how can I put it? I went to a meeting and they didn't turn up to start off with, and then about a day later there was a phone call and they said that they were a bit worried and what have you. So I got this witness statement, and then I saw a couple of them, but not together, because they were really scared. They were really scared.
Well, what did the object look like? What time of it? This was in the at nighttime?
Yeah, because right now they'd left this function, right? Yeah, this meeting, and so they were driving home, and it, after 10 o'clock at night, because they had to close back in them days, sort of like 10:30 and what have you, pubs. So it wasn't long after they'd been driving when they came across this at the side of the road. And like I was saying, 4 of the men had been in the army, and they didn't like how they'd been treated, and they were sort of like by the soldiers, and it's, look, you've got to leave and this area. But as they're doing so, they're deciding to go look at the other side of this hill and look down on them to see what was going on. And what they could see was one of the guys had got out of this truck, then another one, and they'd surrounded the actual craft. There was also 5 aliens, yeah, and 2 looked as if there was her, and they were being helped, sort of like out. And while this is going on, one of the troops had gone to the back of the actual craft and looked to be getting in, and then they just shoved it. They shoved it up this slope and basically manoeuvred it, and it was then put onto the back of a flatbed armoured vehicle. And sort of like these guys are in disbelief. They can see an insignia on the craft. The aliens have got insignia on like this one-piece suit what they're wearing. And there's the thing about it is they're carrying, they're wearing, I should say, a belt kit, like a Sam Brown. Mm-hmm. This is how I had it put to me, like a Sam Brown sidearm, belt and what have you. And I'm thinking, wow,
Well, how long was the object and these beings actually sighted? I mean, how long did this incident go on for?
Oh, we're about maybe 5 minutes or so.
And then did the craft take off, or?
No, it was put on the flatbed truck, and covered, and then this vehicle and the jeeps, basically went along the road out of the area, right? Now, the thing is, when I started researching, I sort of like looked at other things, like, okay, it was in the sky and what have you, but there's a coastline. So I wrote off. But this time I had trauma. I'm always having trauma in my family. I had to go and with my parents, and so I said to a friend, "Look, I'm going to be writing, to people. So can you, sort of like look after these letters, and if I send the letters in with your address on?" And he says, "Yeah." Unfortunately, the person I was helping look after with my mum and dad that passed away. So I came back maybe a month later, and one of the letters what I received was from the Coast Guards, yeah. And what I'd said was, "Did you have anything on your records of happening on this day?" It was the 23rd of January 1974. Well, I've got a letter saying, looking through files, the boss is away and what have you. What I will do is I will look, sort of like in other places and what have you. So then there was a telephone number. I rung this lady up and spoke to her a number of times. And I always take my conversations, by the way, when I'm investigating, right? So
good idea.
So what happened was, so I've got the tape and everything. I've got about 4 tapes. I've got a letter back saying that there was, they called it an exercise called a photo flash exercise taking place around this area, Liverpool and North Wales. Expect up to 80 flashes of light, and I think it was 10 aircraft. Now that's a lot for like an exercise, sort of like at night time around this area, which is pretty built up. Liverpool, sort of like around. The sort of like the Welsh coastline and what have you, with the towns and cities there, sort of thing. Now, a photo flash exercise is they drop these illuminating bombs, right? Yeah, to illuminate targets, right? So
right.
Basically lights up ground troops. Also, it's used over the sea for illuminating submarines. Right, so there's that going on, which is a bit strange. These guys in the statement says that what had happened in the North Sea, in the Irish Sea, right, that there was this going on where there was depth charging this area, and it was an area in the North Sea up to Puffin Island.
All right, let me have you hold that thought there, Russ, because we have to go to our first break of the evening. We'll continue this conversation on Exploring the Bizarre, so please stay tuned.
Now back to Exploring the Bizarre with 2 of the most electrifying researchers in the paranormal, your hosts, Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz.
All right, welcome back to Exploring the Bizarre. I'm Tim Swartz. In the first half hour of the show, we were talking with Russ Kellett, and I think, Tim, we need to bring Flori Violetta into the program now. She's been waiting so nice and patient for us, so let's get her on the line. Flori, thank you for being with us tonight.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so honored.
Well, Flori and I met on Facebook, actually, and I had a conversation with her. I knew she had just from our brief little chatting in the messenger there. I knew she had some UFO experiences, and so we spoke on the phone. And she has had I guess since early on, quite a number of paranormal experiences and an ongoing series of UFO events. So I was fascinated by the story incident she told me, and I said, well, geez, we got to share these with the Exploring the Bizarre listeners. So why don't you, Flori, start at the top here, and how did you get involved in all of this? You did tell me about a a paranormal experience that involved a cross when you were growing up?
Yes, hi there. Thanks for having me. I just wanted to, give the listeners a little bit of background about my
Yes.
experiences. So, I grew up in, the deep woods of Virginia, I guess you would say. So I actually had my first remembered or UFO experience, as I could say, in 2016, early 2016, at the very beginning, where my friend and I experienced a few encounters that really kind of changed our lives quite a bit, as you would say. But early, I was no stranger to strange encounters in rural Virginia, more towards the western part. There were a lot of strange occurrences that happened. A lot of electromagnetic activity that was disrupted and whatnot. So
You say electromagnetic?
yes, a lot of TVs or radios that were shut off. A lot of light bulbs exploding above my
Now,
head.
this was centered in the household where you lived?
Yes, it's in near Charlottesville, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And it had been in our family for quite some time.
Yes.
Paper records, and as far as back as the 1800s. So, yeah, basically a lot of strange.
Well, how old were you when this was happening?
Through childhood, but as far back as I can remember, around 10 or 11 years old, we would have people that would refuse to enter our property. They claimed evil things were happening, witchcraft and whatnot was happening on our land. My family was devout Christians, and we were missionaries. So it was kind of strange when people even refused to set their feet on our land because they were a little bit terrified of what was going on.
So now, when these strange experiences were going on, I mean, was anybody also, seeing UFO activity taking place at the same time?
Actually, as far as I can remember, that did not happen until early 2016, where my friend and I began to experience some pretty strange UFO activity, and it really changed our lives. I mean, we had never really been into the subject matter, and it just completely started and has not ceased to happen, and it's changed our lives that early morning in 2016.
What has the other weird stuff, like you said, like the electromagnetic phenomena and other types of things going? Has that continued as well?
That has, street lights going out, a lot of interference with our devices, wireless devices, cell phones, happening. And I'm no stranger to cell phones. I work with them, and I'm pretty proficient in their repair and whatnot, especially when it comes to software matters. But we've had a lot of strange activity happen with our cell phones as well since then.
Well, can you go ahead and tell us about the experience that you and your girlfriend had?
Sure. So in the very beginning of 2016, I was at my best friend's house. We were outside late at night around 11 p.m. And she kind of just looked up and to the trees and said, "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" And I looked over, and basically we saw these huge, 3 gigantic balls of dim light. They were dim, they were still, but they were, kind of bobbing around a little bit. They were just there. They're just these 3 balls of light. I guess the best word for them would be orbs, and they were there, and we tried to record them, and our cell phone started acting up as soon as we tried, and they drifted off within a minute or two, and drifted off into the night sky. And beginning that night, for the rest of the evening into the early morning hours of the next morning, we had a huge amount of strange UFO activity, and it kind of hasn't stopped since then.
Now, did these orbs look like that they were attached to a larger body, or were they, floating around separate on their own?
Well, after we first saw them, it was a little bit difficult to even think about what was going on around them.
Mm-hmm.
We just knew that they were together, and they left together. So they started slowly drifting off, and we were not able to capture footage of them, even though we were able to capture some impressive footage a few hours afterwards of something else. But they definitely were uniform, together, in unison, drifting off.
Well, how large were they, would you say?
About 4 to 6 feet in diameter.
Mm-hmm. And the color?
They were darker orange color. They were not extremely bright at all, but they were definitely together and drifting off into the night sky.
But you didn't think that they were anything like a plasma or a ball lightning? They seemed to be under intelligent control.
Oh, absolutely. It was something that shocked us both to our core. It was nothing like the ball lightning or electricity that people speak of. It was definitely intelligent and drifting off together.
Well, what did you think about this? I mean, how did it affect you? Did it affect you physically or emotionally or a little bit of both?
Looking back, we were both remarkable at how calm we were. Because they were so close to us. They were right at the tree line between her house and her neighbor's house. And so, I mean, it's not that far away. And so when it occurred to us that we should start, filming this, both of our cell phones started acting up, and we weren't able to capture that. But, it definitely piqued our interest so much so that we spent the rest of the night outside with our phones, trying to record anything that, caught our attention. It was something new to both of us, and is not anything new to both of us since then. But definitely,
looking back on it, do you think that somehow these orbs that you saw, and you did describe to me some other craft or vehicles that you also witnessed, do you think that they were somehow involved with this paranormal experiences and the things that had gone on around your home earlier on?
Absolutely. As soon as that first sighting started, for the hours that followed afterwards, it was really different. It was really eye-opening, and basically, it changed our lives. It changed my life going forward. It changed her life going forward. Something resonated within me, and that's why I kind of haven't been able to let go of the subject matter. I see things now that I think any average person would if they actually stopped and paid attention. So, yeah, definitely, it was something life-changing within both of us that happened that night and ever since falling forward.
Well, now, you said that there were other things going on that night. Do you want to give us a little bit more detail? What else you saw when you say you stayed outside all night?
Yes, we did.
I don't blame you. I would have too.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. Actually, we had all our phones out that night for the rest of the night.
I don't know. I might have hid under the front porch. I don't know.
It was too intriguing for us. It was absolutely too intriguing for us. We saw some cylinder-shaped craft. We saw lots of, little things in the sky that resembled airplanes at first, but then they weren't moving, or they were moving extremely erratically. They would change color, and eventually we did manage to capture some pretty incredible video of something that was changing color and changing in shape, dividing into parts. it was pretty incredible that night. I won't lie, it was incredible.
Now, and I don't know if you can remember or not, but I asked this of a lot of witnesses. Do you happen to remember the days before this night, if anything unusual had happened to you, non-UFO related, before this evening? Had there been an uptick of the electromagnetic activity of your house? Anybody, unexplainedly, died or got sick, or just anything now that you would, think back to before this happened and go, that was kind of weird.
Well, perhaps following, there were a few strange things that happened, but beforehand, absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing that, led me to think that anything was going to go on out of the ordinary at all beforehand. And I wonder if that's why, it's completely shocked me, because I do have a few things that manage to alert me when something's coming up ahead nowadays. But no, nothing coming up to the incident that completely changed us now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now when you say completely changed you, I mean, are you talking about, it's kind of opened your eyes that there are things going on that we don't understand, that you don't understand? Or do you think that that maybe it's something going on at maybe even a deeper level within you?
Definitely both.
Mm-hmm.
Especially on a deeper level within me, it has changed me. With my friend, she is a little bit more reluctant to speak openly about it. It's I guess a lot of the activity has occurred around where she lives, and it seems that it's on a little bit more of an accelerated rate than what I witness to present day. But I mean, I would say definitely both.
And that's freaked her out, hasn't it?
It has.
Well, now, were there other witnesses in the area? I mean, did you notice? Was that anything in the media, on TV, or on the radio, or newspaper?
I searched a lot, especially that night. There was nothing. She has 4 children, and a few of her daughters came to me and told me of separate UFO incidences that they had within the past couple of years beforehand. But I searched all over the media for any UFO sightings that night around the area, even in the state, and there really wasn't that much to speak of, except for the video that we managed to take. I found a video of somebody that had posted a clip of the International Space Station, the live feed that they have going on at NASA, a couple days before this happened, and the craft that we managed to film actually looked like the craft that was filmed by the International Space Station about a few minutes or a few seconds before they actually cut the live feed.
How about you must obviously been interested in the subject and read up on it. Were there other incidents, though, in, let's say, a radius of 50 miles or so over a period of years? I mean, are there any major cases that took place near where you are?
Surprisingly, no. Although I'm pretty surprised that there aren't any, especially in her town. It's a smaller town outside of Richmond, Virginia. But, as far as I can tell, it hasn't been a very active area as far as UFO sightings in that area in Central Virginia.
Well, but you seem to have uncovered something. Now, do you think that they've made some sort of contact with you, maybe even if on just a superficial level, that they're saying they, whoever they are, if there is a they. Well, what do you think is behind the phenomena? I mean, have you pondered that at all?
I pondered it, and I can't tell you a definite conclusion that I have made. I've obviously entertained the extraterrestrial aspect. It seems that at times they are pretty interactive, because we have seen several orb things happen, orb-related type things, which I never even entertained the possibility before this instance in 2016, even though I like to think that I was open-minded enough. But I'm not really able to draw that conclusion altogether, except for to say that they were unidentified flying objects in the sky, and they're pretty incredible.
What would you say of the things that you have seen, since 2016? What would you say would be like the closest you have been to any of them? Have they all been, like way up in the sky, or I mean, have you seen any that's, within, say, rock throwing distance?
Well, besides the three large orange balls of light in the sky that we saw in early 2016, they have gotten pretty close on one other instance that I can remember. My son and I were outside. It was during the summer of 2016, and basically he came outside because something inside of my friend's house had startled him, and we were chased by two balls of light that came out of the backyard woods in between my friend's backyard and her neighbor's yard adjacent, and they pretty much chased us inside of her house, and it scared us to death. And so they have gotten pretty close. So I don't know if this was something mischievous, trying to scare us or something, but it definitely scared the bejesus out of me.
Okay, now you said that your son went outside because of something that happened in the house?
Yes, in my friend's house. This is the same best friend where I had the first initial UFO encounters in early 2016. In her house, there's always a lot of strange activity going on. So when my son came outside because he was scared, a DVD had flown off the bookshelf, basically, hurling towards him, and I had tried to reassure him that, things like this happen at my friend's house. It just kind of happens a lot there. So he came outside for some comfort, and then when these two balls of light come flying at us from the woods, basically, it kind of scared us to death.
Yeah, I bet he probably doesn't want to go back to your friend's house.
Yeah, it's kind of a thing.
All right. Well, we've got a question from Troy from Texas, and Troy wants to know: Has you, your friend, ever attempted any kind of regression to see if you could recall, more details of, I suppose, your initial UFO sighting and regression? For those out there who don't know, like a hypnosis or hypnotic regression.
I can't speak for my friend, but me, yes, definitely. I have a few shared memories, one with my brother and one with my brother and my mother from childhood, and we don't really remember much. But suffice it to say that we were all three of us scared at one point, and in another memory it was just my brother and I, and we were terrified, and we were inside of a vehicle both times. And we don't really remember much since, or, during the occasion. So I have gone a hypnotic regression to try to uncover a little bit at what's happened in the past, but I haven't really been able to remember or uncover anything of substance.
So this kind of unusual activity has happened to you and your family from quite a ways back.
Yes,
And
it has. Hmm.
how do you remember how old you were when the whatever happened to you in the car with your mom and brother?
I was about 8 or 9, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty early on in childhood, but like I said, none of us can really exactly remember what terrified us so much that night. And, hypnotic regression, I mean, I've tried it, and I haven't really been able to uncover too much of it as of yet.
Yeah, you have to have a very good and very professional hypnosis in order to do something like that correctly and without, accidentally feeding you information
Exactly.
that maybe,
That's something I try to be wary of.
uh-huh. But you're saying that all of you remember is that there's something scared you, but you don't know what. Well, and we're going to have to hold it at that for now because the time has really flown. We're coming up to our break, Tim. So we're going to have to take it. It's our top of the hour break, and we'll continue our conversation with Russ and Flori when we come back on Exploring the Bizarre.
Exploring the bizarre. Your e-ticket ride into the world of the paranormal. Strap yourself in as we traverse the universe exploring the unexplained. UFOs, ghosts, lost worlds, cryptozoology, as well as other dimensions. It's time to take back the night. Now, your electrifying hosts of Exploring the Bizarre, Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz.
All right, welcome back to the second hour of Exploring the Bizarre. And Tim, this is a fascinating program tonight. You got some great guests. And
well, I like first person.
I do too.
Experiencers. People that have actually gotten down in the mud, as they say, to or maybe floated in the air.
That's where it's at, though, because I mean, you just have these personal experiences. We don't actually have physical UFOs to study. We've got these personal experiences. That's all we have.
Even it's kind of interesting here in the last week or so. UFOs have come to the top of the news. We haven't seen much activity UFO-wise in the media for quite a number of years. I think the last that I can think of would be the O'Hare Chicago airport sightings. That got a little bit of a rise out of the media and was on the news for a couple of days running, and then it's been pretty silent. An occasional sighting, perhaps, but nothing of any great importance. And this activity, of course, involving the government spending $22 million, which is like my roll of nickels over here to the government. I mean, it shows that they still maintain an interest in it, but they know, according to them and those that worked on the project, they know as little about UFOs as we do. In fact, I'm sure they're probably more confused than anything else. You talk about disclosure. If I were the president, and people ask me, well, what are UFOs? I would say, well, go out and buy a couple of books by Tim Beckley or some other authors and decide for yourself, because that's what we're trying to do. Like everybody's got a personal opinion on it, either based on their own experiences or based upon whatever that they've been able to accumulate information or evidence wise. But there has been, this is nothing new about the concept that there are some people in the government that are trying to get this information out because they think the public has a right to know, and others that would try to keep it a silence, the silence group or secrecy involving all of this. If you read some of the early books by Major Donald E. Kehoe and Edward Ruppelt, this conflict has been going on within the walls of the Pentagon for 50 years.
Well, more than that. Right from the very beginning.
Yeah, there are some that thought that these were extraterrestrial and that the public had a right to know, and some that thought that the truth, whatever the truth is, should be hidden because of a mass panic or the stock market would crash. Well, we proved this week that the stock market isn't going to crash because it certainly didn't because of the revelations of UFOs being seen, and even the idea that here we have this video or gun camera footage of this thing that they said looked like a Tic Tac that was flying at enormous speed and making all kinds of maneuvers. There's nothing new either. If you remember the movie in 1956 that was called simply UFOs,
right?
What was the main thrust of the film? Were two different 16 millimeter reels that had been taken. I think one was by a baseball coach or manager in Montana.
Right, you're right.
And the other one was, I can't remember, maybe Utah or somewhere. And some people said, "Well, look at these objects; they're flying at a great speed and doing all kinds of maneuvers." And other people said, just a flock of birds."
Well, and plus, I mean, we don't know whether if that imagery that supposedly was taken from from the jet. I don't know what you got. It's radar imagery. I don't know. We don't know whether or not that's actually real or not. You're able to do so much anymore. Anybody can get a hold of software and mimic something like that very easily. So it's hard to tell anymore.
Well, would the government be making this up?
Well, I mean that footage
false flag.
Well, that footage was released separately from the news reports that have been coming out about this so-called secret government study. That footage came out. I think people put it out to try to support this information. So.
Well, I think was not the footage of official military footage released by the Pentagon.
I don't think so.
Well, I think it was.
Oh, okay. I'll have to go back and double check because I had I had seen that footage a couple of weeks before. Before this story had surfaced.
Yes, indeed. It had been released previously.
Right,
without the audio part.
Yes,
of it. But they have they interviewed the Navy pilot on the air. I don't think he's sitting there making it up. He saw what he saw, and the equipment photographed what it photographed.
Right. Well, we'll just have to wait and see if anything else comes out, or if it just dies away.
It did last for a few days, and I noticed that there seemed to be a little less of the chuckle factor involved, a little bit of sneering, perhaps. Now I notice it's kind of like good cop, bad cop, or good newsman, bad newsman, where they one of the the people sitting around the desk or discussing this will take it more seriously than the other. I wonder if this is taught to them in like a media or journalism school. Some of the the subjects that you can ridicule or make fun of on the air. UFOs must be like a separate little packet that they're given.
All right. Well, Tim, I have been in the, on that side of the camera for a number of years, and I can tell you that it's not taught in journalism school. And one of the reasons that you get the giggle factor, as they call it, is because of that. These reporters, editors, I mean, they have no experience or knowledge of UFOs or UFO reports, so they go for the easiest way out, the lowest common denominator.
I can't believe that, some of these people that are doing the news commentary at noon or 6 or 11 p.m. haven't read a book on UFOs. They can't be that ignorant, or they wouldn't have gone to.
Most of them have not. Most of them are completely ignorant of the subject.
Jeez, where have they been?
The most they know about it is from maybe watching the X-Files or something along those lines. That's why you get these really inane stories, put out.
Okay. At the end of the segment, after they've given the hard facts about a particular incident, then they make their joke. Is that joke pre-written by some editor, or is that improvised?
A lot of times, right at the very end, it's improvised.
Okay.
But I mean, the actual production of the story, that's why everybody resorts to using, like X-Files music, that tired old trope. And, and it's just, it's because they have no previous knowledge. And so, they react with comedy. They make a joke about it.
Well, I was kind of surprised that in the old days, I had my own publicist, a gentleman by the name of Harold Sulkin. We worked together for many years. And he would have gotten me on every TV talk show going. There seems to be a lack of a connection between the media and the UFO experts, if there is such a thing. You would think that they would have been on the news, even if only for a 10-second clip. It doesn't even seem like. It seems like for 3 or 4 days that the media was using the same story over and over and over again. They didn't even bother to go out and get a little bit more of the so-called facts.
No, of course not.
Enough of our theorizing here. Let us get back to the guests of the evening, Tim.
Yeah, Russ has been patiently waiting, I know, for us to finish jabbering back and forth here. But Russ, you had alluded earlier to your own personal abduction experiences. I mean, are you willing to tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, if you like. Yeah. No
problem. Yeah, definitely. Tell us.
Well, it started. I'd had things happen when I was a child, but if you want to talk about remembering things, let's talk about the things I remember. I was on a motorbike. I was riding after work, usually going to see somebody, and I went down a tunnel. Right, yeah, and I'm thinking to myself, where's this tunnel come from? There's no tunnel on this road. Then the next thing I remember, I was in this circular room. There was like people around me. I was put into this. I can't explain it. Like a chair, but then it was suspended. But it wasn't like a proper chair, if you know what I mean. I can't explain it. It just felt like I was sat in something, and I was hanging, and then a bit like a doctor's chair in a way. I had my head put back, and I had this tube put down my throat, and I'm trying to fight this, and then I felt something, and I sort of like went numb, and then I had this helmet that was part of this tube put on my over my head. Then I was raised, and there was hundreds of people in the same situation, suspended in like this chair type thing. And there's this, like I could only put it as likened to a screen, like a hologram. Mm-hmm. And There was all sorts of things being flashed in front of us. Right, yeah. There were weaponry, how to use weaponry, etc. There was then different images of races came up, like alien races, you know, and then the next thing I know, right, yeah, I'm back coming out of this tunnel, right, yeah, but in the opposite direction, right, yeah, to where I was riding in the first place,
right,
and sort of like I'm almost falling off my motorbike, and sort of like having to bring it back up and looking around me and thinking, you know, what was that? So that was one time.
How old were you? How old were you when that happened?
I would have been about 26 or so, 27.
Okay.
Then I was at a level crossing, more or less around the same area, a place called Steeton, which is other side of North Yorkshire. And I came to this level crossing, these red lights were coming down, and I stopped. I was illuminated by this light. I looked around because I could feel like heat on my back. I looked around, I thought, this is a wagon driver that's getting a bit too close for comfort. So I'm looking at, there's nobody there. There's nobody at the side of me. And then I felt like I was floating. And then the next thing, I was back down on my motorbike, and the light had gone, and then the little red lights had sort of like gone in front of me. And I thought, that's bizarre. I never saw a train go past. Carried on my journey home. This light was travelling, and I could see it to my left-hand side in this this valley, and then sort of like over trees. And it like was silver in colour at first, and then it changed to like just a ball light. And then it started getting closer towards me and coming over big trees and what have you. And then it shot in front of me, right in front of the road, and sort of like I had to slow down. I would try to race it if I'm honest, because it was outside of me at one point.
Sure.
And it sort of like flew straight across the road and up over to a place called Halifax. So I pulled over where we used to do trail bike riding, and I pulled over and I watched it. I even lit a cig up and watched this in amazement. And I thought, right, I better move myself because I've got work the next day. So I get home, and I thought, that's a bit strange. The lights are all off. My mum, my sister, and my dad are usually sort of like up when I get in. Goes in, my dog came, let it out and what have you. And I thought, I better go to bed now. I made a coffee. I thought, I better go to bed because it's a bit late. I'm going to wake everybody up in the house, you know. So anyway, I'm woke up by my mum shouting, Russ, get up. You know, you think you're getting early when you're working the next day. What's up with you? So I thought, oh, right, that's a bit odd. Anyway, so goes to work on my motorbike, walks through the door. I'm taking my helmet off. And one of the lasses came up and she said, yeah, have you seen your face, Russ? I said, yeah, have you seen yours? She said, no. She says, seriously? She says, have you overdone it on the sunbed? I said, what are you talking about? She said, look at your face in the mirror, you know. So I went in my office, had a little mirror sort of thing, and I looked, and where our face helmet had been, my face was red raw, back of my hands and my neck. And I thought, that's bizarre. Anyway,
like you'd been sunburned.
It looked like, so yeah, but remember, this was, like late at night.
Right.
You know what I mean? Sort of like I'd come on from, I'd been to see somebody about doing a job on my chopper, you see, and my motorbike, that is. And he wasn't there. So I came home, it was about 10:30 at night. It wasn't in the summer, it was the back end. So, I mean, it wasn't sunburn, although I was on a radio show and I was assured it was windburn. Sorry, being a biker, it was windburn. No, it wasn't windburn. Yeah. So that's something else. Then I was with a friend, or he was with me on back of my motorbike. We'd gone out after work, after tea, and we're just having a ride around. And he was telling us the next day about where we'd been that night. And I said, well, I haven't been that way. He said, how do you mean? I said, no, I says, and it's funny, I said, I went down this tunnel, and "What are you talking about, you fool?" I said, "How do you mean?" I said, he says, "Not being that way." I said, "No." I said, "We didn't go past the Three Nuns." I said, "That's miles in opposite direction." So we had a bit of an argument about this, and he wouldn't speak to us. In fact, it was so bad, the next day was sort of like going to a meeting. He wouldn't have a lift on the back of my bike because his were off-road, right? And he went on the bus because he said, I'm you know, you're talking stupid now, you know? So I went past the bus giving him the fingers and what have you. Sort of like, to everybody's amusement, sort of like pipping me on and giving him fingers and what have you. Then he got off the bus and sort of like crossing over to this pub and sort of like, so put my foot up his backside, you know, sort of like, you know, well, almost. And he's sort of like giving me a load of abuse back and what have you. And then they were saying, "What's up with you two?" Yeah, he's a nutter. He's talking about he were on bike and we went somewhere last night and sort of like he said we went one way, I went another way, you know, and he's talking about going down a bloody tunnel. Whoops, going down a tunnel. So, you know, sort of like it was I should know where I rode my bike. And he said, "Well, I was on the back, I should know where." So this was going on, you know. Then I was coming back. We'd been out to a big meeting and what have you, and a party sort of thing. And I had to pull over because I didn't know where I was. Right, yeah. The next thing I remember, with this military unit of aliens, right, yeah, and we're attacking this facility. Right? Yeah, no, yeah. And so, like, you know, and I pulled over and sort of like, I got off the bike and sort of like, I didn't know where I was and took my helmet off. I couldn't breathe hardly. "What's up with you?" You know. Then, you know, there's other instances where, again, riding, and I came across this tunnel again. Then I'm in my bedroom and the wall turned black and these like shadows walked through and started communicating with me. At this time, I was up in my bedroom listening to music and I'm just looking at the wall turning black and these things coming through. My sister had gone to the toilet upstairs and she could hear me talking to somebody. And she thought, "Oh," you know, and the door was ajar sort of thing. And sort of like they walked away and had put all these images in my head, were telling me things. And then I started being ill. I started really being ill that night. And I was taken to hospital within a few days.
Well, what were they saying to you? You said they communicated with you. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah, of course I did. Yeah, yeah. There was communicating in the same way as you know, when I first had seen this screen and this hologram, and they were showing me images, and there was sound sort of like different to the images, if you know what I mean. But one of them came up to me, and he told me something. Right, yeah. And then when my sister was, you know, coming up the steps and what have you to the bathroom, these things just basically about turned and walked through this black wall and back out. And I'm telling my sister, "Jill, who are you talking to? Them, look, you know." Well, she said, "There's nobody there." And she went down and, you know, sort of like that's when she was saying, "I think there's a problem. Either he's talking to," and we had the house sort of like blessed and everything. This guy came around, this spiritualist, and he blessed the house, every room and what have you. And then, you know, sort of like I had other occasions, again, where my girlfriend saw me being taken by one of these things in the cemetery with 3 other friends. Right, yeah.
Right.
Are we all right for time? I'm just looking to. We're all right for time, yeah. I said we better get out of here because I could see these shadows on this. Were a massive 15-foot wall around the cemetery, and I said, "Look, I could see these shadows. Let's get out of here." Last one back, I says, to cricket club that has to pay for rounds, you know, joking and pretending to run. And so they're running in front. She stopped and she looked round and she said, "This thing took me." It disappeared in front of her eyes.
Wow. All right. Well, we're going to have to stop right here because we have to go to our bottom of the hour break, Russ. So when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Russ and Viola right here on Exploring the Bizarre. So stay tuned for more.
Now back to Exploring the Bizarre with two of the most electrifying researchers in the paranormal, your hosts, Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz.
All right, welcome back to Exploring the Bizarre. And I want to ask Flori Violetta a question. Flori, in the previous segment, you talked about how you and your son were at your friend's house, and he had to go outside because he was scared by what basically sounds like poltergeist activity. And I don't know if you realize, but a lot of times poltergeist activity and UFO sightings go hand in hand. So had this activity been going on in your friend's house before 2016, when you two first saw your first UFO, or did it start afterwards?
It had been going on for quite some time before. I met her in about 2007, 2008, and it was nothing new to her house. So when that happened, I kind of tried to reassure my son that everything was going to be okay, because stuff like that would happen from time to time, and I wasn't aware of the connection between those types of occurrences and UFO activity until, in the past couple of years when, since the UFO activity began for us. And, so it's pretty interesting, the link there.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you think that, you've had all these repeated experiences. Do you think that they, and again, I use that in quote marks, whoever they may be, are aware of your presence?
Sometimes, yes. It seems that at times these strange lights can be interactive. I definitely do believe, on a wholly personal level, that they are aware of me and whoever else that might be aware of them.
Well, I'm wondering, is it because that you've given them some attention and have acknowledged their existence where other people might not, or is there something about the area in which you reside, or is it you?
That's something I'm trying to figure out still to this day. I've considered all three possibilities, but I really feel like if people, wake up a little bit and pay attention to what's going on around them, pay attention to their surroundings, that they might actually discover for themselves that there's a little bit more out there than what meets the eye.
Now, if you say, if you think about this and that there were other people there, there've never been more than a handful of people there, or 3 or 4 people at the most?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
All right. Well, suppose you had a larger group. Can you summon them? Can you say, "Holy hell, let's come down and appear for me at such and such a time"? Have you ever tried doing that?
I've tried to reach out to other people in Virginia that have experienced UFO activity and other activity, kind of around this area, and I've been able to connect with an awesome UFO group. It's the UFO Club of Virginia, based out of Virginia Beach. Jessica Eunice runs it.
Yeah, I know they've had some sightings in Virginia Beach over the last a couple of years. I think I've even seen a video or so on YouTube.
Yeah, it's an amazing group, and I'm really lucky to have been able to become a part of their group and been in touch with them, because really, in Virginia at least, there are not many people that are open to coming forward with their experiences. So it's been a great support system.
Now, but what I'm trying to get at, do you think that you could summon these objects? I mean, to appear? Is there any way of communicating with them more directly?
Like I said, in my experience, they've been a little bit interactive, especially the balls of light that tend to come closer to the ground, a little bit lower than the sky itself. But, I haven't actually tried a group of us summoning them, so to speak. So, that's, I guess, yet to be answered.
Well, okay. Well, what about, have you ever, had an instance where you say you've been in the house and you're like, we need to go outside right now because I have the feeling something's going to happen, and then it does?
Yeah, absolutely. That's happened, and stuff has happened. But in those cases, it's either myself alone or my best friend and I. It's not. It's just something that happens as it happens. It's not anything where we've had a large group of people that have been willing to try and participate. It's really hard to find people, I guess, in my area at least, where this shared common interest has brought us together, and we're able to go out on such a given night like that, where we feel like something's going to happen. But yes, that has happened. Where we've had a feeling, we've gone outside, stuff has happened.
Well, our friend in Tucson, Alan Benz, has the World UFO Group, and every year, I think, I don't know if it's exactly on June 24th, the anniversary of Kenneth Arnold's sighting or not, but around that time, they usually have a worldwide UFO skywatch. Maybe next year we could all participate and see if we can get some acknowledgement. I mean, you would think, Tim, that at some point here, I mean, we have had thousands, tens of thousands of sightings of something strange in the sky, on the ground, in your home, all around us, that at some point they would want to make contact with more than just one or two individuals. I mean, is there no ultimate goal here, or?
Yeah. See, I think you're anthropomorphizing the phenomena. I mean, you're thinking like a human, and myself, I think that we're dealing with something that's completely outside of our range of understanding. That it whatever it is, it has the ability to make itself apparent in ways that are understandable to us, but ultimately, whatever it is, whatever the intelligence is that's behind it, is completely beyond our understanding.
Well, Russ, you've had close, encounter, more than close, really close encounters. Do you see some ultimate gold here? I mean, is there anything that you've experienced that would lead us to believe that there might be a final outcome to all of this?
Oh, hell yeah. The government know all about it. I mean, they've got to know about it. They've definitely got to know about it. I mean, these things invading not only our airspace, these things are actually landing. Like I say, the unit, this alien unit, I know for certain, I've seen them, as well on TV, wearing sneaky beaky gear. Who's going to know exactly who they are? Sort of like when they're all wearing sneaky beaky gear like special forces, and they turn up, you just know there's something going on more than what people say. You can't rely on the news anymore to tell you anything, to be quite honest. If somebody from the government tells you something, just take it as read, It's a case of, read it and leave it. Sort of like politicians, it's just one of these things where, I know in my own mind what's happened to me. I've lost friends through this. You were talking about earlier can you call these things? These things are around me all the time. I moved 80 miles away to live on the coast. I go out. If I take my video camera, they're about. You can see all my footage. They're around me. As for calling them, I don't want to bring them down. I don't want them to come. Believe me, I'm not particularly happy with what happens to be put in a military unit with these creatures and have to do their bidding. They're up to no good. They're up to no good.
Well, so do you think that they are all of the same source? I mean, when you say they're up to no good, I mean, are there no positive? Well, let's say aliens. I call them ultra-terrestrials, but are there no positive groups there?
Well, yeah, I suppose the ones that they're fighting. It's a case of there's so many. I mean, the targets that we get, sort of like in the locations where we've been taken, there's so many different, you could say, armies that are fighting my unit, and also on this planet as well. Not only other planets, but on this planet, And you're not gonna read about this in the paper, I mean, I can remember when I told somebody about my story and showed video. They're interested in my videos for a magazine, yeah, but they wasn't interested in me talking about being part of a unit and my drawings and my pictures, sort of like of our clothes that we wear as insignia, all this sort of thing.
So you're basically living it's almost like a Philip K. Dick existence in two different realms.
Exactly, yeah, and this is why I know. This is why I know. I mean, medical reports show me. My doctor, I've got my files here and my reports. Why does the doctor say, and it says clearly there, Mr. Kellett is in a UFO group. Why would they want to put Mr. Kellett is in a UFO group? Well, I mean, I know for certain in the Middle East, in the Gulf, I know for certain there was extraterrestrials fighting. I know that there's a number of craft that had been shot down. I know for certain we was over there. My unit was over there. What was it all about? And I can tell you now, there's something what they're looking for. There's some technology what they're looking for. Right, yeah, some ultimate technology, because a lot of the sides, including, our own governments, have got some of the actual technology, but not all of it. And I think that they're looking for some technology, some lost technology as well, for the ultimate, sort of like who has it will probably win.
Oh yeah, well there were rumors going around, like during the first and second Gulf Wars, that the whole reason that was going on, the invasion of Iraq, was that the United States government was looking for some kind of ancient technology.
Oh, there is no doubt about it. And the thing is, some of the technology, what I've seen, what we've used, and myself, you would call it magic. But then again, the weaponry isn't magic. Having said that, I mean, the weapons what we use, like I say, I've used, have been sort of like sound weapons. I have seen us use our so-called modern technology as well, parabellum rounds, machine pistols, etc. But I've also seen something very spooky in the room what I was in, where there's like what do you call it? A pillar at each side, with these, not orbs, but these like plasma balls, and being in the middle, touching these, in this checkered board room with all these like, what you could only describe as like knights, like old knights, but I've travelled with these lights, all these plasma type craft. I won't say too much because I'm always waiting for the person to tell me. Don't always think it's flying saucers, and sort of like flying triangles. Also, although I've videoed flying triangles come out of the sea where I live here and what have you. But it's a case of it's not always what people think, and I'm always listening out. I'm always listening out. just to see if there's anybody. I've been told by one or two people that, yeah, they're in the same unit as myself. You know?
Now,
Have they been able to prove? Oh, go ahead, Tim. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I was just going to say there are a couple of incidents where you say there have actually been skirmishes between the military and these objects.
Yeah, of course they have. I mean, I know once, quite a number of years ago, back now, when I was talking to somebody in Special Air Service, and they always used to take the mickey out. I used to make military equipment, right? Yeah. I used to have a shop, etc., and I used to do a lot of paintballing. And you know, sort of like one of the guys turned around and they said that they'd been in Ireland where they'd actually had contact with a craft and aliens.
Now, there's I notice here on Amazon, there is a book. Now, you didn't write it yourself, but I guess it includes a lot of your information and material by Stephen Lumley.
That's right. Yeah.
yeah. We didn't mention that. It's the Brian Mountain incident.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I've got a book file. To be quite honest, there's so much of it from the actual night, from the constabulary. They're what you call incident reports, and there's all the people's names, telephone numbers, and everything in those reports, in those files, I should say. And I actually I've met people that was there on the night. These 5 gentlemen that was there, I've met a couple of them, because they're all passed over the years, have passed away. You know, it's just one of these things. But the telephone conversation I had with a sergeant who said they'd been there for quite some time before the incident and quite some time after, and there was actually excavating the area, and it wasn't to do with UFOs or aliens that they were doing, but this is when it all happened. It all sort of like kicked off, if you like. So, you know, and then he went cold because the phone kept on cutting off every time he rang, and he said, "Oh, I don't like this." But I've got the actual tapes of the sergeant talking about all this that was going on. There's a lot of people that I spoke to, witnesses, that said the military landed, an helicopter landed. Just unbelievable what actually happened. But I've been censored. Every time I've been talking about it, people ring in and there's emails going and what have you. You know, I've been blocked over the past couple of years by certain people from even talking. So this is why you won't see me talking on any podiums or anything.
Now, who exactly has blocked you from talking?
Well, let's put it this way. When the documentary makers have been in contact and they're saying, yeah, we're wanting you to come on the on the show and talk about your story and about the Berry Mountains and my video footage, etc. All of a sudden, right, yeah, it stops, it ends. And I spoke to a chap and he says, "Don't repeat this and do not tape me. I'm telling you now." And he said his name. He said, you cannot use this. He said, but there's somebody, he said, who is blocking you at every verse end. Right, yeah. This one person, he said, he's got clout and he's blocking you at every verse end. Right, yeah. Why?
Well,
why would anybody, if I'm talking nonsense, if all this is BS, right, yeah, let me make a fool of myself. But I'm coming out and talking about weaponry, about uniforms, about insignia, what we wear and what the alien units wear, where we've been, how we travel, in the bases. Am I such a threat?
Now they have these various groups. They have bases right here on Earth.
Yeah, of course I have. I filmed flying triangles coming out of one of the bases in the sea. It's on YouTube. You can have a look and decide.
Yeah.
Decide for yourself. That's what I say to people.
Because we've seen pictures of these objects too coming outside, like Dulce, New Mexico, where they seem to actually be coming through the walls of the mountains there. It's like they're physical at some point, but they can also turn into interdimensional and be able to pass through objects. That's why a lot of people have reported to us that, oh, you know, so and so came through the bedroom wall, or came through the ceiling, or they were in the back seat of the car with me.
These things can alter the size. If you have a look, there's one ball in the sea, right near the shore, and it's a glowing sort of like white ball. Then the next thing, it becomes 2. And then the next thing, it becomes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there's 2 flying triangles. And I film it for 28 minutes. I film it, it takes off. There's lots of things coming down. I spoke to an investigator. I'm talking to him on my mobile phone. Finished, and I said, right, I'm packing up and going home now. And then I went missing for an hour.
Now, Russ, we're coming to the end of the show here. We only have a couple of minutes. Where can our listeners find these videos on YouTube? Do you have a channel, or?
I do, yeah. It's under R.J. Kellett, Russ Kellett UFO Hunter. You can find me at British UFOhunters.com, or at the British Flying Saucer Bureau. I'm the head of that now. I've took over because Dennis.
Oh, you really? Okay, very good. Yeah, we'll try to include a couple of the stills and maybe a short clip in our YouTube version of this show, which will, of course, our listeners can find under Mr. UFO Secret Files. Peter, I'm sure, will be working through the night getting it prepared. And, of course, we're also on Stitcher and Google Play and iTunes. And, of course, you can re-listen to the program on KCORradio.com. And I want to thank Tim. I think we should thank our guest, because we're getting towards the midnight hour here on the East Coast, and it's time to get back into our spaceship and head out into the galaxy to save the Earth from space invaders.
Well, yeah, and I want to thank Flori for taking her time to come on tonight, and to
absolutely.
please, stay in touch with us.
I'm glad we got to meet on. I'm glad we got to meet on Facebook. There are some very interesting people there. You know, I've pulled a few guests from just the people I've made friends with, and it's some of the best information. You know, why should we have the same guest on all the time when there are a multitude of people out there who have had these experiences? So here we are at the end of another show, and don't forget to find us on Facebook. You can just contact Tim Beckley and Tim Swartz. And, of course, listen to the show every Thursday evening, same time, same place. And do visit our YouTube channel, Mr. UFO Secret Files, and buy a book. That's what keeps us going.
All right. Good night, all. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
You've been listening to Exploring the Bizarre with hosts Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz. They're taking back the night by jetting non-stop across the cosmos in search of the truly bizarre and totally unexplained, with you as their co-pilot. Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. For more information on Exploring the Bizarre and hosts Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz, check out their KCOR Digital Radio Network page. Follow their YouTube channel at MRUFO 1100. Exploring the Bizarre.